Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Hello and welcome to Ask Rob and Rob, the show where you get your questions in and we give you answers. Well, we're at least going to answer the first question, but we're not going to answer the second one. Well, at least not today. Find out why in a minute. But before we get to the questions, let's give you a quick reminder of how you can get on the show.
Yep. The secret lies in 11 numbers, which must be entered in this particular order. 013 808 00035. That's our phone number. Call us up and you'll get a voicemail and be able to leave us a message there. Or if you don't like the 11 digits, you can use some other number of letters that I haven't worked out yet, which is by going to propertyhub.net/ask and leaving us a voicemail there instead. Either way, nice and easy, get your question off the chest and then we'll give you an answer, just like we're about to for Matt.
Hi Rob and Rob, my name's Matt and I'm actually curious about my own residential property that I bought as an investment in Zone 2 London by Olympic Park. There's tons of investment here. There's 2 huge hotels being built at the moment and lots of investment in the park itself with the new V&A museum, some BBC studios and different universities moving in as well. And also there's Crossrail if that's ever delivered. I also got a lodger who's paying £1,000 a month as well, which makes it a great kind of investment for myself as well and helps pay the bills. I bought the flat in January 2019 and the aim was to be here for about 3 years with a possible extension of up to 5 if property prices remained flat after Brexit. And that was the idea before selling and moving back out to the countryside where I'm from and ultimately want to be. Now, it feels like the future of work is changing, and I wouldn't be surprised if London started to struggle with the shift of all the office space while a lot of companies revisit their portfolio to reduce and shrink to allow more people to work from home. And Zoopla data is already showing that out of city location demand is almost the same as pre-lockdown, but London remains almost 25% lower, thus a Zone 2 flat becoming less desirable. The big question is, what are your thoughts on the London property market in the future? And am I on the wrong side of the country-city trade currently happening?
Matt, really interesting question. And it's an interesting situation that you're in, which is not necessarily good news for you, but it is for us because it's something that's fun to think about and probably educational for other people as well. I think as a general point before we start, it does show the risk of buying somewhere to live if you're only planning to live there for a short space of time. And I get why you'd want to do that instead of renting because rents are expensive and it feels like you're wasting money, but it can be risky as you're now unfortunately learning. In your case, it very much depends on that specific micro location, which I don't know about, because as you said, there's been lots of investment there. So it's possible that prices will have gone up or at least stayed flat since you bought it in January 2019. But if you look at London as a whole, prices I think are slightly down since January 2019. So there's at least a chance that you won't be able to sell it for as much as you bought it for, especially by the time you've taken all your buying and selling costs into account. So if that's the case, then what do you do? Well, if you're in a position to do so and you really want to move, then you could just take it on the chin, take a small loss and make the move that you want to make. Or you could, if you can, rent the property out and go rent somewhere where you want to be. Or third option, you could just stick it out in London a bit longer than you originally planned to, wait for the market to turn around and then sell. Those are the options as I see them, Rob. Do you see it as the same, and what should Matt do?
So I think what's interesting is the bigger question here around the London property market, because a lot of people will want our views, whether they're going to be right or wrong, they'll still want them on what is going to happen with the London market, because it is so important to the overall market and the economy. So Rob, as a bit of a cop-out, I'm going to throw it back to you, but what do you think is going to happen over the next few years in the London market?
Well, I should preface these comments with the statement that if you've been basing your investment strategy about what I'd said on the podcast about London over the years, I don't think you'd be holding up particularly well. So you might not want to pay much attention to what comes next. But I get all the work from home stuff. I get all the wanting to move out for more space stuff. But I still think the impact of that will be limited in the longer term. I still think London is super strong in the longer term. So I wouldn't want to be in a position where I had to sell in London right now. I wouldn't be investing in London right now. But in some period of time, maybe 2 to 3 years, though who really knows, I think normal London service will be resumed. And by that, I mean prices will still be high, demand will still be pretty strong, growth will be there, but growth won't be super strong because prices are already so high and yields are so low and affordability is so stretched. So the better investment opportunities will still be outside London in some of the areas of the north that we talk about all the time. But London will still be fine. It'll still be okay. It'll still be a good long-term investment. So I see what's happening now as a bit of a blip rather than the start of some major correction. But Rob, if you've got any views, it might be useful for the listeners to hear them, because like I said, I don't particularly trust mine.
Well, I've said the same things on London in the past as you anyway, Rob, so not that my opinion's worth any more. But actually, to be quite dull, it's very similar. I think if we fast forward in 3 years, I wouldn't be surprised to see London prices certainly no worse than where they are now, possibly a little bit higher, but nothing to write home about. But also, if there is any dips, they'll all be sorted back out within that time period. So over the medium term even, I think London will be fine. It's just that I wouldn't be investing in London in the next 24 months, but I certainly wouldn't feel panicky if I owned a property in central London, which I don't. But if I did, I wouldn't be worried for the reasons I've just said. I think the market will be roughly where it is, if not a bit higher, in 3 years' time. But that also then may create a bit of opportunity, because if the London market hasn't really moved the last couple of years, might not move for another 2 or 3, then you know what? In real terms, it's been falling. So 5 years of falls when you account for inflation is quite a long time for a market. So then at some point, London will become an opportunity again. But the opportunity is not today. But you also don't need to panic.
So Matt, what does that mean for you? Well, it very much comes down to your personal situation. If you are willing to stay put for potentially a few years, then you probably will be able to exit on better terms rather than finding yourself on the wrong side of a megatrend that actually makes things worse. But maybe that is too long for you, and because of your lifestyle, you'll need to either sell or find a way of renting it out. And if that's the case, well, that's okay. It's your home, and living where you want to live and being happy with the place you live is more important than just the numbers of an investment. So whatever you do, good luck.
So next up, we have a question in from Clara. And we've already said that we're not going to answer this. But before we explain why, let's hear a question.
Hi, Rob and Rob. My name is Clara. First of all, thanks very much for all the useful insights and podcasts you put out recently about what's likely to happen in the near to sort of distant future in the property market. One thing I would like to hear a bit more about, if you think a crash is coming, or, a crash is coming later down the line, how would you prepare for that? Would you sort of remortgage, get your money out, keep it in cash, or how would you make sure you are safe, relatively safe, to weather out any crashes, but at the same time you're in a good position to move quickly when good deals become available and finance becomes available again? You talked a little bit about, in the next big depression, trust in money may evaporate. I'm a bit wary about keeping money in cash. Any thoughts about this will be much appreciated. How do I prepare for a storm?
Clara, how dare you? How do you expect us to answer that? No, actually, Rob, it's not that we're being moody or unfair to Clara. It's actually a timing issue. But in some ways, this is great timing, because we want to talk about this, but in a bit of detail.
Yes, your question is super timely, because we've already got an episode planned in where we're going to be talking about this subject, or at least something very similar. Because the markets and the world have been so unsettled this year, and there are so many apocalyptic predictions floating around about the future, this is a topic that we planned to address. And we've also changed our thoughts on some of this stuff over the last couple of years, probably since we last talked about it on the podcast. So we'll be talking about that next week. And then over the next month or so, on what the longer term might look like in terms of when does this crash come. We've said in the past that we don't see a crash happening in the next few years, but when does it come? What does it look like? And is it big enough that it does upend the entire world order? We've been reading a lot about that kind of thing over the last few months. And we're going to be pulling it all together into another big picture, economics heavy kind of episode, because those have been very popular when we've done them in the past. So no answer for you today, Clara. But if you keep an ear out for both of those, hopefully you'll get your answer then.
You will, and we can't wait to get into it. We'll be back with Ask Rob and Rob, same time next week. So until then, take care, everyone. Have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.